Welcome to another episode of Game Boy Roulette, where we take a look at randomly chosen games from the Game Boy library. Revenge of the Gator. Is the apostrophe really necessary? Alligators are cool. They're huge creatures, they somehow look both intimidating and kinda goofy at the same time. They're dangerous, but if you maintain a brisk walk, you should be fine. They're just a cool animal. And video games have been well served with alligators and crocodiles in a variety of ways. Whether it's the baddie of Donkey Kong Country, King K. Rool, the radical leader of Team Chaotix's Vector, League of Legends Butcher of the Sands Renekton, or any of the tiny friends from Pokemon, we have plenty of crocodilia to choose from, and now they come to the Game Boy in the most unexpected way. Pinball. Yeah, you heard that right! Revenge of the Gator, released early in the Game Boy's lifespan, is a pinball game, and the first pinball game on the system. And when I say early in the Game Boy's lifespan, well, remember how last week golf was the 16th game ever released for the Game Boy? Well, Revenge of the Gator has it beat, as it's the 12th release. And also like golf, it has a reputable background, being developed and published by HAL Laboratory. So this game ends up mirroring golf in a lot of ways. They both involve balls, they both have early releases designed to showcase the Game Boy, made by established names. Alligators sometimes show up on golf courses. They're practically the same game. The box art is absolutely delightful. Not only do we have some pinball action, we see every flavor of Gator. Angry, sneaky, sinister, focused, and Dave. I also kind of love that font. It's like they remembered at the last second they have to have the game's title on the box, so they just threw it in with the first font they could find. It's another early Game Boy title by a well-known company. Limber up your flipper finger for Revenge of the Gator. Oh my god, look at them. Oh, there's more of them. What? Are those helmets? What are you guys wearing? Revenge of the Gator. Wow, that's... Given how early this is in the Game Boy's lifespan, that's actually not bad animation at all. Gator 1 player, Gator 2 players, match play A and B. These three are all multiplayer from what I can tell. So, let's do single player. So, when playing a pinball video game, the most important thing is the physics. We need to see just how well the game plays, because good or bad physics can completely make or break any game like this. And so far, just a cursory quick play. Physics seem fine? Alright, review over, thank you. Aw. Oh, wow, we found a bonus stage already. I'm very quickly realizing I'm seeing a lot of Kirby's Pinball Land in this. Which makes sense, you know, same team. I'm almost wondering if this was like the proto Kirby's Pinball Land. Oh, where am I? I found a new room. According to the manual, there's 8 different rooms, 8 different screens you can see, which, not bad. I think Kirby's Pinball Land had like 15 or 16 of them. Oh, I'm right up there, okay. The thing I have always found about pinball video games is that they're good, but you miss that physical feedback. You miss the feeling of the machine shaking. You miss, you know, feeling the actual weight of the ball. It's the kind of thing that games, at least early pinball video games, just could not replicate. Fish. Eggplant. So while people would get super into pinball games, and they're good, for me at least, all I wanted to do is be like, man, I wish I was back at the arcade playing. My jam was the Addams Family pinball machine. That one was tremendous. Well, the good thing is, pinball-wise, there's seemingly a lot to do. That's the thing, pinball machines, it's easy to forget they have, like, achievements. Pinball machines have progression, which is crazy to think of. And later pinball games would really play around with that. Here we look at the bizarre world of Mario's Pinball Land. So here's another problem I have with pinball machines. Or I should say pinball video games, because it's not as prevalent when you have the actual physical machine. When you have something like this, you have to get right up there. You really want to have something with more physical feedback, where you can hit the bumpers harder or softer to hopefully influence it. Oh, it's closed up. Here, it's looking like you really don't have that much control over how much power you hit them with. I think that's something that would be implemented in much later pinball games. Like, some of the modern pinball games on Steam are gonna have that. I didn't really notice until now, but the music is not very good. It's very tinny, you know, especially when compared to Kirby Pinball Land, which has phenomenal music. That said, the graphics are pretty nice. I like all the weird detail on the Gators. Look at that little guy. He's so angry. Yeah, so this is the kind of thing where to make progression, you have to hit specific shots, but due to the general limited physics, it's really difficult to actually make them. I know I've been, you know, sounding down on it, but so far the game is fine, even kind of fun, especially for an early game in the Game Boy library. I mean, this is what the first NES pinball game looked like, and this is way better than that. But it's still not great, you know? Definitely surpassed by things like Kirby's Pinball Land and Pokemon Pinball, which was fun but had its own world of jankiness. Darn it, I keep going down here. Darn it. I'm wondering if the slot machine even gives anything or if it's just points. No. Okay, that made it all worth it. The style of this game is elevating it significantly. Any pinball game where they added a bunch of fun animations and style is just always a good thing in my book. That's where I think they take pinball games and really make them as good as possible for a video game, you know? And again, for me, oh, yeah, bonus stage. Bonus stages go a long... I didn't even have a chance there. Come on. Yeah, it's fine. It's a totally fine pinball game. Elevated by presentation and by, well, having to consider that it was an early pinball game. But in general, yeah, just kind of, as with most pinball games, makes me long for the real thing. Now let's see if we can get this Gator, finally. I'm sick of this game. I really should get back to the arcades at some point. I long for the sound of flippers. There is a lot in Revenge of the Gator to be impressed by, and especially considering just how early in the system's life the game was released, compared to other games that came out around that time, it's especially impressive. Pinball is all about the physics of the ball moving around, and thankfully HAL Laboratory put work into that to make sure it felt smooth and even a bit realistic. There was a good variety of screens, some general progression to be had, fun animation, and solid graphics as well. It resulted in a really solid pinball package for the handheld, setting the stage for multiple other pinball games that would eventually arrive on the Game Boy. Mechanically, other than there being just one table, there's not much to complain about, but from a subjective standpoint, the game runs into an issue I have with all pinball games. They just can't compare to the real thing. I apologize if this comes across as elitist, but to me, the biggest joy of pinball games is the physical feedback you get. The feel of the table shaking, the sense of weight the bumpers have, hitting the buttons harder in an attempt to make the flippers flip harder. It's so hard to get those in a video game, and we certainly aren't going to get them from a game released in 1989 as the first pinball game for a brand new system. Again, this one is pretty subjective, but given how important it all is to pinball, I think it's worth mentioning. But as I said, mechanically, there's not much to complain about. It's not some kind of masterpiece, but it's still generally fun, and a great showcase for what the system could do. So if you like pinball video games, seeing how they started on the Game Boy is definitely worth your time. Wait, hitting the buttons harder does make the flippers go harder, right? Or was that just a placebo thing? And that's all for another episode of Game Boy Roulette. Make sure to like the video, comment, and subscribe to follow the series as we continue to dig through the Game Boy vault. I'm BrianJ, and I'll see you next time.